국내 언론에서 전하지 않는 뉴스, 지금 이 순간 폭스뉴스를 통해 확인하실 수 있습니다.
First means first. That's the focus of tonight's angle. It's a promise that reshaped American politics.
I will share with you my plan for action for America. Our plan will put America first. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Now, America First speaks to the demoralized and disaffected. Trump knew what Americans had done. They'd grown sick and tired of sellout politicians in both parties. The decades-long bipartisan collusion against the American people made America First the perfect pitch. It helped Trump beat the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Bushes, Hollywood, the fake news media, the think tank crowd, the academic elites, and yeah, the foreign policy establishment. Because America First isn't complicated. It means America, her families, her people, and her workers come first. What happened in the House this week suggests that some Republicans still refuse to get it. In a closely watched vote, the House voted 224 to 204 to extend what's called temporary protected status to 350,000 Haitians, many of whom have been living here since the year 2010, after that horrible earthquake that devastated the island. But what should really burn you up, as my late mother would say, is that 10 Republicans and 1 independent who caucuses with them joined the Open Borders Democrats to pass this. Remember these names: Mike Lawler, Maria Salazar, of course, Don Bacon retiring, Brian Fitzpatrick, Carlos Jimenez, Nicole Maliotakis, Mario Diaz-Balart, Rich McCormick, Mike Turner, Mike Carey, and Kevin Kiley. Now, how do they justify this abdication? I have a hint for you. You're mean simply for asking. They claim that returning the immigrants to their home country, which the statute underneath clearly contemplates, is not compassionate.
It's sickening to think my Haitian friends and neighbors can be sent back there.
They enrolled in TPS so that they could pay taxes, support their families, and educate their children.
And that's always followed by the fake worker shortage argument. Now, listen closely when Congresswoman Maliotakis, those were Democrats before, describes her constituents.
I have a lot of healthcare workers in my district that are of Haitian descent that are on TPS, and my nursing homes, my healthcare facilities have said that they're going to lose skilled staff at a time when there is a shortage. It's the right thing to do for my district, for the healthcare facilities I represent, and if these individuals are here paying taxes, working, contributing to our economy, fulfilling a healthcare need, then their status should be extended.
Okay, first of all, those workers are not her constituents. They can't even vote. Second, the statute's protection relates to the conditions in the foreigner's home country, not supposed economic conditions here. And third, the worker shortage argument is false and it's insulting. And it's typical. You always hear it from the cheap labor lobby. More nursing homes are owned today by private equity than ever before. The convalescent homes, of course, they serve a really important purpose, but the more they cut costs, including labor costs, the more profits they rake in. So if you believe market economics, you would know that if there were truly a widespread labor shortage in these health sectors, the basic economic signal would be rising wages, because a true labor crunch means that more employers are competing for fewer spots, which then means that they would have to offer higher wages to get those fewer employees. Instead, here's what the actual pay looks like across many of these roles. Look at this. $29 an hour for licensed practical and licensed vocational nurses, only $16 an hour for home health aides, nursing assistants, orderlies, $18, $19 an hour. There have been some modest increases over the years for these jobs, but it's pretty brutal. And nothing close to what these numbers would look like if we were truly looking at a tight labor market. Now, the shortage looks a lot more like a reluctance on the part of corporate America to raise pay and invest and American workers. Pay higher wages, be mindful of job burnout conditions, and it's burnout in a lot of these sectors, and you will have a much bigger pool of native-born applicants. It's also important to remember that the program at the center of this debate, again, the Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, was created back in 1990 as a short-term humanitarian tool for extraordinary circumstances, such as another nation's armed conflict or true natural disasters. The DHS secretary has the authority to declare the countries eligible for this TPS relief, so El Salvador was the first country to benefit. But in practice, it's turned out to be de facto permanent amnesty. In the case of the Haitians, the TPS benefit has already been extended 3 times. It is a total scam at this point. And during that same period, the United States has provided billions in aid to help Haiti. So the obvious question becomes this. Since TPS has been treated as permanent, why isn't it being debated as such? The TPS program itself has been a magnet for more migrants to come in hopes of future extensions. In 2021, the southern border saw a massive influx of migrants from many countries, including Haiti.
We got an exclusive boat ride out onto the Rio Grande today where we got to witness literally all day long a constant mass of migrants just streaming across the Rio Grande and entering the United States illegally. They just walk down from a neighborhood in Ciudad Acuña, Mexico. They walk across a dam in the Rio Grande. They end up on the shoreline of the United States. Some of them bathe in the water. They change their clothes.
That encampment grew to more than 15,000 people. And according to reporting, many had been living in other countries before making their way to the United States. So documents were found discarded, suggesting they were prepping for fake asylum claims. And within a few days, more than 12,000 were released into the United States. And then fast forward to today, and policymakers are voting to extend protections for many of these same people. Meanwhile, at a local level, a huge controversy is swirling about the benefits that are being doled out to migrants once they're here, including, apparently, gender transition surgery.
A lot of Latino here, so definitely some are migrants or undocumented.
I think, and me as a trans woman,
Yeah.
I feel safe.
Were you able to get the hormones or,
Yeah, I did that with my doctor.
Here in California, they gave you the breast implant here.
Yes.
Free.
Yeah. Even though you're undocumented, you can get them.
And in Boston, Mayor Wu takes woke to a whole new level. With her $500 vouchers for things like massages, haircuts for migrants who identify as queer or trans. This as the city itself faces a significant budget shortfall. Now zoom out, because TPS is just one piece of a much larger policy landscape. There's also sustained lobbying going on for other visa programs to expand, particularly in these supposedly high-skilled sectors. But overwhelmingly, when they say high-skilled, there really are no special skills involved, unless accepting 30% pay cuts from what American workers were paid qualifies as a skill.
You have a Senate primary going on right now. This is what I say about getting more involved. Every single one of you should ask those Senate candidates, what do you think about the H-1B visa? Would you co-sponsor the vice president, former senator's legislation to eliminate that program because it's basically just something that big tech companies take advantage of? These are the things that you guys have to do, because I can't keep these politicians honest by myself. I need your help.
In many high-tech sectors, the looming message to American workers is this: prepare to train your foreign replacement. This just happened to my very close high school friend. She's on the field hockey team with me. She texted me and said she just lost a consulting contract to an Indian national whom her company found through an Indian placement company. She said this will keep happening until eventually Americans just stop applying for these types of software consulting jobs altogether. So the question for lawmakers tonight, especially Republicans, is straightforward. Will policies that they enact into law actually address the interests of American workers, or will they address the demands of unscrupulous industries that want a new class of slaves to overwork and be underpaid? The answer will determine the fate of the midterms and beyond. Young workers are looking for a decent shot at a productive and happy future. Older voters, I think they just want things to calm down. The president has already been masterful at stopping the flood of asylees at the border. Now is not the time to undermine that progress with backdoor amnesties or visa expansions. The principle, my friends, is simple. Temporary should mean temporary, and America first should mean Americans first. And that's the angle.
Fox News alert, Iran's out of business. They lost the Strait, and the only way to get through to them is to yell.
Have you been negotiating a lot all day? I mean, is that why your voice is hoarse?
I've been screaming at Iranians all day, yes. A little bit of a laryngitis because of my I've been screaming at Iranians.
So the Iran leadership
you know
you're screaming at?
You know why? Because that's the only thing they understand. They don't understand being nice. They understand the way I have to do business. I treat all people differently.
The president's being loud and clear. Deal or no deal?
If there's no deal, would you be willing to extend the ceasefire, or will the fighting resume, Mr. President?
I would say the fighting, if there's no deal, fighting resume.
The Iranian economy's a dead raccoon. The naval blockade's working like a finely tuned machine. The commander-in-chief says the blockade's better than the bombs.
The blockade has been incredible. It's held. They're not doing any business. They're unable to do any business because of the blockade. And so the combination of having no Navy, having no Air Force, having no anti-aircraft equipment, they have nothing. Everything is gone, including their leaders. Now they have a new set of leaders, and we find them very reasonable.
Since blockade day, 14 ships leaving Iranian ports. We made them do a 180. Not a single ship has slipped the quarantine. Here's a sailor on board the USS Michael Murphy, one of our destroyers in the Gulf of Oman, telling a merchant vessel, do a Yui.
Motor Vessel Molly, this is Warship 112. We will be escorting you to your next port of call. Thank you for your cooperation. This is Warship 112, standing by at channel 16.
The regime's not even testing the blockade anymore. In 4 days, we've killed their trade, and now they can't get paid. Here's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Raisin Kane.
As we started this blockade, there were 7 ships of interest that were of concern for U.S. Central Command. 2 hours and 40 minutes into the blockade, as attempted blockade runners attempt to hop the line. And immediately these runners began to see, sense, and feel America's combat power compressing upon them. We're now 24 hours plus into the blockade. You can see the turning around of multiple ships, 12 of which stayed inside the blockade line, one of which not depicted off to the eastern side, turned around before even attempting it.
First it was the Air Force, now it's the Navy. What a two-punch combo.
The United States Navy controls the traffic going in and out of the Strait because we have real assets and real capabilities. And we're doing this blockade, performing it with less than 10% of America's naval power. The math is clear. We're using 10% of the world's most powerful Navy, and you have 0% of your Navy. That's real control.
They said Trump went to war without a strategy. But a 5-week air campaign, followed by a 5-day blockade, has the Iranians praying to Allah. And these destroyers aren't like the Coast Guard. They're armed to the teeth.
Over 500 feet long, they displace 9,000 tons, and it is the sports car of the United States Navy. They stand nearly 10 stories tall, and their 4 gas turbine engines can drive the ship at 30-plus knots. These ships are armed to the teeth with surface-to-air missiles, land attack cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, anti-submarine rockets, torpedoes, 5-inch naval guns, multiple electronic warfare systems, embarked helicopters, extending the reach and capability of each and every one of these destroyers.
You probably wouldn't hand a teenager keys to a sports car, but the boys on board are real men.
Far and away, the most important weapon on board these ships is the American sailor. These ships are run by the youngest sailors in our surface warfare Navy. The helmsman, the sailor on the watch at the bridge, is normally just between 18 to 19 years old, and they are trusted to drive this warship through that supermarket parking lot without hitting anything.
Also participating in the blockade, the USS Tripoli. Marines on board have been conducting live trainings, rappelling from choppers, close combat drills. They're ready to board a ship by force and take her. On top of that, the USS Gerald Ford, operating in the Mediterranean, just broke a record. The longest carrier deployment since the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Ford went from capturing Maduro in the Caribbean to smoking the Ayatollah in the Middle East. And the blockade just went global.
In addition to this blockade, the joint force, through operations and activities in other areas of responsibility, like the Pacific area of responsibility, will actively pursue any Iranian-flagged vessel or any vessel attempting to provide material support to Iran. This includes dark fleet vessels carrying Iranian oil.
So if any Iranian ship in any body of water, they're subject to seizure. The Iranian economy is getting squeezed like a boa constrictor. We spent 5 weeks bombing over 17,000 targets, including factories, rail, roads, ports, steel, research labs, gas fields, petrochemical facilities, even Iranian big pharma. These are the core pillars of employment and production in Iran. The Journal says it's going to cost $250 billion to rebuild, trillion. And because of the blockade, no new money's coming in. Time's on Trump's side.
This embargo is squeezing the economic life out of the Iranian regime, and the United States has the capacity to continue this indefinitely if Iran chooses the wrong path.
Iran's facing economic calamity. 12 million jobs, half of Iran's workforce, is set to get doged. They can't rebuild themselves, and they can't import anything. Time's also on our side because we're gathering intelligence. The ceasefire gave us a tactical advantage to spy on the Iranians. We're watching them dig out of their tunnels these mobile missile launchers that have been covered in rubble. Well, that just gave us a new target set.
You are digging out your remaining launchers and missiles with no ability to replace them. You have no defense industry, no ability to replenish your offensive or defensive capabilities. You only have what you have. You know that, and we know that. You can move things around, but you can't actually rebuild. You can dig out for now, but you can't reconstitute. But we can. We are reloading with more power than ever before.
The ceasefire gave both sides a break, even though they needed it a lot more than we did. It played right into our hands, with bridge and power plant day still hanging over their heads.
We are locked and loaded on your critical dual-use infrastructure, on your remaining power generation, and on your energy industry. We'd rather not have to do it, but we're ready to go at the command of our president and at the push of a button.
The Iranians can't afford to sustain any more damage. Plus, they just lost one of their favorite weapons, their proxies. Hamas and the Houthis, they've been AWOL, and Israel and Lebanon just signed a 10-day ceasefire. That includes Hezbollah.
Israel and Lebanon have tried to make peace before. What's going to be the difference this time?
Me. I'm the big difference. Me.
So the Iranians can't fight back, can't rebuild, can't trade or make money. And they can't communicate because they're underground without command and control, phones, and Wi-Fi. But the deal that's probably on the table is sanction relief, the West will invest, if they give up every single ounce of uranium.
Very important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully. They've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust that's way underground because of the attack we made with the B-2 bombers. So we have a lot of agreement with Iran, and I think something's going to happen very positive.
The president's bullish right now on a deal. So bullish, he might even fly across the world to put his Sharpie to a treaty.
I would go to Pakistan, yeah. Pakistan has been great. They've been so good. Islamabad, I might go. Yeah, I might go. If the deal is signed in Islamabad, I might go. The field marshal has been great. The prime minister has been really great in Pakistan. So I might go. They want me.
Scott.
Now, I do want to shift gears with a message to the Vatican tonight, specifically to Pope Leo, who has openly condemned America's war in Iran while seemingly enjoying a public fight with President Trump. First, let me give some context. Like millions of Americans, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. I even attended a seminary in high school, studied theology, Latin, went to Mass daily. I got a lot out of it. My parents, they were devout Catholics. And while I wasn't particularly engaged at the time in the teachings of the Catholic Church, as a young person, it certainly entered my consciousness and made me a better person. And it has been a positive force in my life in so many ways. But as of today, I no longer consider myself a Catholic, and while I am a Christian, I left the Catholic Church in large part because of institutionalized corruption, and it was at the parish level, to the bishop level, cardinals, all the way to Rome. And, you know, the very top scandals, terrible behavior, frankly, went not only unchecked, but they never fully corrected it or dealt with it. And others at the Vatican have totally lost sight of the true meaning of the Bible and its teachings. I don't know why, for the first 1,200 years of the church, priests were allowed to marry. They changed that law. But right on cue, Pope Leo XIV is now seemingly more interested in spreading left-wing politics than the actual teachings of Jesus Christ. As the AP put it, quote, Pope Leo amplified his condemnation of America's conflict with Iran, saying that God does not bless any conflict and certainly doesn't side with those who drop bombs. Well, first, that is simply not biblically accurate. The Bible contains over 400 references to war, frequently depicting God as authorizing, commanding, intervening in battles like one that we all know, the battle between David and Goliath. Why is the Pope twisting religion to specifically attack only President Trump and the U.S.? Why did he recently meet with top Obama advisor David Axelrod and the far-left governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker? Is it because he's a run-of-the-mill Trump-hating Democrat that lacks moral clarity about radical Islam? By the way, did he talk to them about abortion? Well, in that case, you know, where are the pointed words for Iran, this evil regime, the #1 state sponsor of terror, the people that murdered 45,000 innocent protesters? Not a peep from Pope Leo. Iran is now set to, you know, literally have 4 more protesters and hang them and kill them, including a woman. Nothing from Pope Leo. Iran oppresses women. Nothing from Pope Leo. Tortures them, rapes them, kills them. Nothing from the Pope. Iran backs terrorists in Iraq and Beirut who have killed Americans for decades. Nothing from Pope Leo. Iran drops bombs on holy sites and neighborhoods all over Israel, densely populated areas like Tel Aviv, and Pope Leo has not bothered to call them out by name. And while the Pope condemns all nuclear weapons, especially on the anniversary of Hiroshima, I don't think we had a choice. Same with Nagasaki. It did end a war, did save a lot of American lives. He doesn't seem interested in ever referencing Iran's unrelenting pursuit of them. And I have a question for the Pope. Is it the right or wrong thing to prevent radical mullahs in Iran, again, the #1 state sponsor of terror, from ever having nuclear weapons? Today, President Trump raised this very important question. Take a look.
Well, I want him to preach the gospel. I'm all about the gospel. But I also know that you cannot let a certain country, which is a very mean-spirited country, have a nuclear weapon. If they did, they would use it.
The president is correct. The Pope is wrong on so many levels. Perhaps Leo's judgment is clouded. After all, he has an old Twitter account. And by the way, it is riddled with anti-Trump messages, including posts accusing Donald Trump of fueling racism and nativism, and other posts pushing for climate change and open borders. Ultimately, preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is both moral and logical, and it could save potentially millions of lives. And we won't burden our children and grandchildren with a nuclear-armed terrorist state. Now, sadly, the same cannot be said for the leadership